this national security stuff is important. As I said, I think China is doing what suits China. What China wants to know is why we're not doing what suits us. China is, I don't think we need to be hawkish and picking a fight. I think we need to stay calm. I think we just need to be confident and actually work out what Australia wants and needs, and our role in the Pacific is critical. And as a member of the Commonwealth of Nations, as an old democracy, Australia is naturally a country that fledgling democracies like the Solomons and umpteen others turn to every time they're in strife.
Yeah, and fair enough. And you're right. I mean, we need to be somewhat careful here. I mean, China could basically ride roughshod over anyone they wanted to. But at the end of the day, China also derives a lot of benefit out of having a good relationship with a country like Australia. They've been bullish with us.
Exactly.
To a certain degree. We've been bullish with them. You know, we're doing the dance that is often done. It's not always a sinister thing, as much as they try to make it look so. It's unfortunately just part of the way that you have to deal with bullying countries like China sometimes. But making sure that we are acting in our interests and really the interests of the rest of the Western world in the Pacific and places like Solomon Islands is smart, because we know that China is investing in these little Pacific islands. It's throwing money at them under the Belt and Road scheme, the one that our mate Daniel Andrews here in Victoria tried to sign our state up to. And basically the way it works, unlike when we give foreign aid or we give physical aid to these nations, China is basically saying, look, we'll lend you the money, but at some point we're going to come knocking for it. And that is what we have to be worried about. So the more we can do to cement ourselves in the Pacific and to help, and I know there's discussion at the moment about whether we should wind back some of the foreign aid we give to Pacific nations. Now, you know, it's not usually me to sit here and say we should be throwing more money at foreign aid, but when we're talking about the Pacific, we are really talking about our neighbours, and do we want to cede more ground to China in the Pacific? Of course we don't. So we have to be there, we have to be friendly, we have to be available, and we have to make sure that we maintain a good relationship with China, but that does not come at the expense of us and the rest of the world. It's a difficult balancing act, but I think it's one that this government is doing quite well. You know, we've stood up when we need to stand up, but we're not going around saying we're going to fire bullets at China because we know where that would get us. As much as some people would probably like us to do that, we know where that would get us. It's all about good diplomacy at the end of the day.
Well, no.
Well, look, all true. And I mean, Lisa, that's the point, isn't it? That Australia has to work out what Australia wants. And Australia does have a major role to play in the Pacific. We should be the ones, without putting big strings attached to it, that are becoming a big brother, not a big controller. We need to be that voice of reason that the Pacific turns to, or else countries that are beyond our close region, like China, are going to start to push in because we've left the door wide open.
But they are already pushing in. You just need to look at what's happening in the South China Sea. They are pushing in. They're already testing airspace. They're already... We had a Chinese ship, James Morrow had the story in the Daily Tally today, that the Chinese ship that was off our shores. So they're there, they're watching. When Operation Talisman was happening, they had a ship offshore watching what we were doing. So we're fools if we think that China isn't on the march down towards Australia. And look, I think most importantly of all is we need people like Peter Dutton. What he did today at the National Press Club needs to be applauded, because he actually laid out exactly the military build-up from China and showed that Australia will stand up with some strength against China and in our region. And so far, we haven't seen that. Peter Dutton's the first one to sort of really take the lead and show true leadership, and we need to see more of that. And look, from my perspective, it was great to see Dutton on the stage at the National Press Club, because previously we've seen France took a swipe at us because we dared pull out of the nuclear submarine deal, and we hand the stage over to the French ambassador to have another hit at us. China hits us with trade tariffs, threatens that they'll send nukes. Well, we allow them up on the stage at the National Press Club. Paul Keating was up there. He wasn't terribly complimentary. It was great to see Peter Dutton up there today.
Yeah, I think that's right, Bronwyn. I mean, the Chinese have announced a new ambassador, extraordinary plenipotentiary. I think there's the full title. It's a very long title, but they've got a new ambassador coming to Australia, the fellow that had been in Indonesia, and apparently a better networker than the aggression we've heard. So maybe Beijing's kind of said, well, look, maybe we need to let Australia vent a bit, and maybe we'll find a way forward. Maybe there is a potential for us to negotiate a way forward, as Caleb describes. But Bronwyn, in the end, if we're not willing to stand for our values, who's going to?
Exactly. And look, what was so important about Peter Dutton's speech today is that he really stuck it to the ABC, saying, you are part of the Paul Keating cheer squad, that you are privately cheering for the demise of the United States as the dominant power, and that you should suck up to China. And that is exactly what the national broadcaster does. The important thing for us to understand is that America is not going to become the declining power. It is in our interest for it to stay strong. We've got a strong ally in Japan. We've got India, who's come on board with our Quad arrangement. The UK is re-engaging in our part of the world because we are saying no to China. You are not coming in, and you're not going to take Taiwan as Hitler took Czechoslovakia and Poland. We are going to stand up for people. We are going to remain strong, and at the end of the day, we want peace. But I'll say it this way, if you want peace, prepare for war. And the important thing, perhaps, of this new ambassador coming from, as he has his last posting in Indonesia, I'll wait and see, because China has not engaged with us at an executive level, i.e. prime ministerial or ministerial level, since Julie Bishop was foreign minister. That's a long time. So be under no illusions. It is not us who wants to fire shots at China. We want peace. It is not us who has not tried to reopen diplomatic relations. It is China who has been punishing us, and when it put out its 14 points saying this is what we expect of Australia, that was a demand which Australia can never, ever accept. And it was an act of aggression. So don't beat on us, don't beat us up for not being good players in the international scene. The fact of the matter is that we stand up for the things we believe in. We believe in our way of life. We do not believe in socialism. China has problems feeding its own people. It's built cities that nobody can live in, and now it's got developers who are going bust. And the screws are being put on various firms in China to try and stem the collapsing in part of their economy into recession. China has problems. Xi has problems. He has enemies in China, but the more they show their muscle, the tougher he will become on them. That's the way socialists play the game. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether it's Stalin or Hitler or Mao or Pol Pot. It's all the same, and the outcome is always the same, which is why we have to remain strong and ready and prepared. And well done, Dutton, for saying so today.